Anyone else wishing for football season? I know we got a little while to go, but
when does it start?
Just saying that kind of gets you started. This is a different story though that we're focusing on. It's from the videos from Florida State University. The Seminoles, of course, the mascot there, and after some controversy, they were able to keep their name and compete in the NCAA. But it's a different story for another team. We have the University of North Dakota. Let's show the logo for them. They go by the name the Fighting Sioux. The NCAA is saying the logo and the name are hostile to Native Americans, and the teams for this university risk forfeiting postseason games, playoffs, if this logo is displayed by their athletes, cheerleaders, or band, or if they just keep the name in general. Lise Wheel is a Fox News legal analyst. Mark Eierglash is a defense attorney and former prosecutor. And Lise, before we get started, we have to bring in this part of the story. The state legislature in North Dakota made it illegal for the team to drop that name.
Right.
They want that team or the university to keep that name. But the NCAA says, hey, our league, our rules.
No.
So who's right?
The NCAA is not right here. The legislature passed that law. They've got a statewide referendum that's coming up. Let the voters decide. Look, we're not talking about the wimpy or the loser Sioux here. We're talking about the Fighting Sioux, like the Fighting Irish. You're going to take that away, too? Everybody in North Dakota wants the Fighting Sioux. And why should, it's not just, Jen, it's not just Florida, by the way. It's Utah, Michigan, and Florida. Many states, the NCAA said, well, it's okay there to use the Indians. I mean, Cleveland Indians, Atlanta Braves, come on.
Mark, we showed the video at Florida, the Seminoles. They were able to keep their name because they got the agreement of the tribes. The tribes say, all right, you can use it. We're going to allow you to keep it. Does that change things here? Because in North Dakota, one Sioux tribe says it's okay. Another tribe says, no, it's not.
Yeah, I thoroughly disagree with my dear friend Lise on this one. In 2005, the Seminoles were able to keep their name because the Seminoles signed off on it. In this case, they don't. They find it to be abhorrent, they find it to be hostile, and the law allows the NCAA to do whatever they'd like under these circumstances. They've asked North Dakota to take that away, and if they don't, their penalties, I think, are appropriate.
Then it's an overreach, Mark. That is a complete overreach by the NCAA to be able to say, wait, if you don't go by our dictates, the students, now let's just forget about the politics of this. The students, the athletes have been working so hard, who are on the line for maybe a championship here. They have to forfeit a game? What kind of message is that sending to the students? That's just wrong.
The message,
they have nothing
here's
to do
the
with
message.
It.
The message is we won't tolerate racism. That's what this is. And it is unfortunate that the kids won't get to play.
Unfortunate?
But you know what? It's no different. Listen, you have kids. I have kids. They don't listen. They'd go to bed when David Letterman takes the stage if they wanted to. So in order to get them to go to bed, sometimes you have to come up with significant threats to get them to comply. And you look draconian in doing so, but they comply when you do it.
Mark,
that's what's going on here.
Here you have many people in North Dakota, Native Americans, who want it, who like it, who think it's a tribute. It's an honor to be the Fighting Sioux.
So, and Mark, let me engage on that kind of contrarian point, because totally hear what you're saying, and a lot of people agree with you in saying, listen, this doesn't feel right. We want to be sensitive to the tribes and their wishes. But you know, I was doing some research on the Sioux, right? Because we don't really talk about the Native Americans that much, and again, it's contrarian. But I wonder, in the effort to protect, right, and to protect the Native Americans, we make them further irrelevant by just not allowing any of their names anywhere because of racism. Alleged.
I can thoroughly appreciate what you're saying, and I appreciate Lee's thinking, well, it's not racist. But ultimately, it's not up to you all. They have decided that it is. And they've met with the NCAA, and they decided that it is racist. They wouldn't be going through this if they didn't think it was. So the decision has been made. The NCAA has the legal right then to set these rules. There's no precedent or law that Lise could point to that precludes them doing so.
There's a referendum that's up in June in the state of North Dakota. Don't you think that referendum should at least be voted on so the voters of North Dakota can decide whether or not they want to have that logo?
Lise, let me tell you something. We'd still have separate bathrooms for African Americans if we let the majority decide what's appropriate.
Just a quick final thought, Mark, on this, because I started with Lise. The Supreme Court did not take up this case or ruled that the Kansas City Chiefs could stay.
Right.
And that's allowed. So the Supreme Court is allowing that, but the NCAA isn't allowing this. Is there a double standard, and does that feel right? The Supreme Court says it's okay in one circumstance, but then a league says it's not in another.
Well, the Supreme Court is merely saying that the NFL can allow that logo and that name to be used. The NCAA is saying, we don't think it's appropriate. We want to do something about it. We want to take a stand against racism, and they're allowed to do so.
But
There's nothing that precludes them from
Jenna's
that.
right. With the Supreme Court saying that the NFL can go forward, how can the Supreme Court, if it ever got there, how could the Supreme Court say, well, the NFL can do it, but the NCAA can't?
It'll be interesting to see what happens because, as Lisa's mentioned, it was a good point, Lisa, about college athletes. I was a college athlete, and you work hard to the end of the year, and then to not be able to play. At the same time, Mark,
let's hope they just comply.
You know, at the same time, Mark, you make a good point because other schools have just removed the logo or changed a few things, and they were able to play, and the students were. Thank you both. We'll continue to watch this issue. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Jen.